Hey Rockstars, Lidshaw at NAMM 2020, and I'm standing here at the Coleman audio booth with Glenn and Harold. How you guys doing? How you doing, Harold?
Good, good. How are you?
Oh, great. Now, how are you, Glenn?
Very good show, very good show.
Right on. So Glenn is the founder and owner of Coleman Audio, and of course Harold Larue here has been a guest on the podcast recently, and he suggested wisely that we come over and take a look at some stuff.
Oh, yeah.
What do we want to look at here today?
Gosh, well, I wanted you to meet Glenn. Glenn's an amazing person. He's originally with MCI, so he was doing console builds and tech work there, and he branched off and started his own company, Coleman Audio, where he's using all of that experience to build some amazing and very robust and great sounding gear. Emphasis on passive elements of the gear as well. So I just wanted to show you all this unit. It's his monitor controller, and this is at the heart of my studio right now. This has got, we can just go through it, the super clean headphone amp, stepped attenuator, control room source options, so you can bring in several different sources. I come in from my DAW. I send a copy that's clean from my DAW, so I can A/B stuff, and then multiple speaker outputs. So, these can also be switched and drive his meter banks too.
Yeah, these meters are gorgeous. So, Glenn, I'm thinking that these meters remind me of quite a lot of the MCI meters I love on my tape machine, right?
Yes, they're CA500ms, and they were nice enough to put my logo, and I used it in red because the MCI was in red. And
well, very cool. So, what's the name of this? What do we call this guy?
This is an M3PH MKIII.
M3PH MKIII. And what was your intention when you made this? What problem were you trying to solve for us?
Well, when I started building this, there were no monitor controllers. I was the only game in town, oddly enough. And I wanted to keep it passive because when it's a passive signal, there's no power supply to add noise, and there's no frequency response to color the sound. And because of that, it sounded really good, and people woke up. Who knew that like old school electronics was really the way to go?
So it's just literally, it's like audio as electrons going down wires. All right, cool. So what other features should we know about here? So we have a headphone jack. Now we got, that looks like that's the headphone volume right there?
Yeah, super clean headphone volume. That's my headphone amplifier that I use. And again, the step attenuator that he's got in his hand is just amazing. Super clean. And rather than a standard pot, which can have deviation from left to right, and also have level deviations, this is built with resistors, so that perfectly matches the left and right sides, which is super important.
Okay, so stepped attenuator is for this main level output right here. Oh yeah, you can feel it.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
It feels really good too. Yeah, and so what this means, and I know in my experience, I've had an interface that seemed kind of fancy. It was powered, and it would send things to a bunch of different places. But if you tried to bring your speaker level way down, for example, you get down into this low level, especially when you learn things like, mixing too loud all day is a bad idea, so you should learn how to mix lower. I started to notice, I'm like, wait a minute, the whole stereo image is shifting over, and do I trust that this actually sounds right?
Exactly. And I experienced the same thing with some other controllers. It was smooth, but in maybe the first 20% of the movement of this dial, I would have level deviations, and in fact, sometimes the level wouldn't come up at all until I got to a certain point on that here, and then I would start to hear the signal, and then they would start to even out after I got much further into the signal level than I wanted to. So I would have to drive the monitor much louder than I wanted to. I wanted to listen to low levels and hear it down there, but I couldn't trust the left-right balance. So the move to the Coleman Audio piece, it really helped me a lot because I could listen at low volumes that I wanted to, and then I could trust that both the left and right images were correct, both the levels were correct.
Nice. And then did you, so we don't include a dim switch, is that right?
No, there's no dim switch on this particular unit.
So it's kind of not necessary because with the stepped in, you just remember where you went to, and it's going to be exactly that same thing, right?
To point, yeah, the stepped attenuator uses 1% resistors, and it's a 47 position stepped attenuator, and it tracks to 0.05 dB. So you can have the high-low left and the high-low right, and a balanced signal can go through the box without any electronics involved.
So I was going to say, Rockstars, when you're mixing and you're like, ooh, should I bring up the vocals 0.05B? That doesn't really count. But when you do 0.050 dB here, that does really count, right? Would you say that's accurate? All right, cool. So what else do we want to look at? Or are there any other features we want to be aware of? We got some switches over here, too. What does minus mean?
Oh, if you push the mono and the phase reverse at the same time, you'll get a left minus right, which means the middle drops out and you only have the side channels.
Oh, wow, that's pretty wild. So what would be a use case for that? Harold, do you use that when you're mixing?
Mastering engineers like to work on the side channels, and they get the reverb and the information correctly there, and then they come back to the full.
Let's ask a mastering engineer, shall we? All right, cool. Harold, what do you think, man? Tell us about mastering and having access to the sides.
Yeah, so it's really helpful because I have all the controls that I want within figure's reach. I can mono the signal, I can listen to the sides, and so that allows me to drop most of the mix out. And because you can be easily distracted because so much of a mix is in the center, kick, snare, lead vocals, bass, lead guitars, everything, all those primary instruments are right in the middle. So it can be distracting if you're listening for anomalies on the side, because mastering is a QA process too, right? So we're looking for problems. This allows me to drop everything in the center out, hear what's happening on the sides, and listen for any issues that are happening there, just with a quick press of the button.
Give us a quick example of what would constitute an issue on the sides.
Oh, okay, so a real problem in mastering is often the guitars or synth pads will be very high up in the sides, and they'll be obscuring the lead vocals. So many mixes come in and the lead vocals are just too low in the mix. So that's a very common problem. So lead vocals are super important. So
didn't they tell you that in indie rock we don't want to hear our vocals?
Yeah, right. Yeah. I hate my voice. I'm gonna don't bury your lead vocals. That's what people want to hear.
Okay.
So if I'm hearing something on the sides that I think is obscuring those lead vocals, this allows me to quickly isolate that and say, I'm hearing some things in the 800 to 2K range that might be obscuring that lead vocal, and I can just dip them out with maybe something like that.
All right. And then, Glenn, I'll ask you this too. What if we want to listen to the mids and not the sides? Is that possible with those switches?
This is just a monitor controller. It's going to give you that, but you need an equalizer or something.
So, like, going mono doesn't give you the same thing as the mid of a mid-side sound,
No. No, it's mono.
All right, cool. That's good. That's good bit of info. I wouldn't have known the answer to that actually really yet. So what else do we want to look at here?
This is equalizer that I built. The original copy of an MCI CA500 console that was built during the 70s.
Yeah, which is a pretty dang good sounding console.
Right. That's the first job I had, was building those consoles. The steps on those consoles were 2 dB per step. Now, this looks like a mastering EQ, and this version is, but the original version I made was spot on to the MCI, and 2 dB is too much for the mastering guys. So I redesigned this so that the high and the low frequencies were 1 dB steps, and the two mid frequencies are half dB steps. The high frequency can be a shelf or a peak. The two mids are peak EQs, and the low frequency is a shelf. There's also a high-pass filter that cuts 18 dB per octave from 30 to 300 hertz. There's a phase reverse on each channel. There's a hard bypass on each channel. You can activate the EQ here. The low is a boost or a cut. 0 is straight up. The high is also boost and cut, with 0 being straight up. The mids are either boost, or when you push the button, it's a cut. the two mids are peaks and the frequencies interweave. So you have like 500, 7.5, and 1.2, and over here you have 400, 600, and 900. So you can build a wider, broad equalization pattern that you'd like. And it's very repeatable since it's on switches and everything is 1% resistors.
Yeah, so maybe you guys will agree with me, but what's cool about this is it's that reminder, like, when you're mixing, quit being such a wimp and make bold moves, but when you're mastering, quit being so heavy-handed and make subtle moves, right?
That's right, that's right. Hopefully all the heavy lifting's been done in the mixing phase, and we're just massaging things on the mastering side.
Right. That's why when we're mixing, we're so strong, right?
That's right.
The heavy lifting.
That's right.
So then one other thing too that I'm picking up on, Glenn. Tell me if you guys agree on this. What's cool about this is you boost your mids. This idea of like looking for the frequency that you don't like, and when you find it, hit cut, and you now just cut it without having to, like, you know, when you do this with plugins, you try and move this from here to here, and all of a sudden you just messed up your cue point or your frequency location, and that can be really frustrating. So that's a nice instantaneous way to do that. And is this passive as well?
No, it's an active circuit, but not with transformers. It has a differential input and a differential output, so it's balanced in and out, but all the circuitry is active, yes.
And that kind of circuitry makes a real differential?
Yeah.
Sorry, that was a joke. Dumbass joke. All right, so what else do we want to look at, guys?
Okay, so my newest product is the TC4 transfer console. And it, again, has a stepped attenuator. It's passive. You can turn it off, and it still works.
Sounds good, too.
The unit has 4 stereo inserts. Now, I have these compressor limiters on number 2, so you can sit in A-B all day long until you get it right. Then I have the equalizer on number 1, and you can A-B that.
Did you say 4 stereo inserts?
4 stereo inserts. So you
That's
can,
awesome.
Or it's in a chain, like 1 to 2 to 3 to 4. Now, if you have them out, it's like a bypass. You're not going to the unit.
But you don't have to bypass all of them. You can bypass one of them just like a plug-in chain would.
And you can also reverse the order of 1 and 2. So I have the compressor here. You can see the lights go. If I push the flip switch, now the compressor is on number 1. And you can sit there and A-B that, so whether you want the EQ first or the compressor first, and make a decision about that. If you have all 4 of them going and maybe you want to go back and see where you came from, there's a pre-post switch, so you can bypass all the inserts, and you can hear that, and you can know what you did.
Now you can't, let's say you don't actually want inserts on your stereo bus. Could you steal this, which is pretty brilliant, just for, just to use on a chain that you're about to record something with?
Yeah, that would work because there's a master out to record the process signal if you're mastering, or to carry on down the record chain.
All right, cool, very cool. Well, that's exciting. All right, what else we got?
It has alternate speakers, 2 sets of alternate speakers. It has 2 stereo inputs. The mono, the left and right mute, and again the phase with the mono gives you the side channels. There's an engineer's headphone, very robust engineer's headphone. And I already mentioned the master out to record the process track. It also has a dedicated meter feed out, so you can feed meters and watch what you're doing.
Oh, cool, and that's how we're getting up to these meters here, right?
And the meters have, if you see them burst into red there, when they burst into flames, it's a peak indicator. So that means that you've hit plus 18 on your peaks, and you have 2 dB left in your DAW before you clip.
Oh, that's cool. I like that. It's Christmas all over again.
Yeah, in a dark room, it's quite obnoxious, which was my point.
Good thinking. That's another place we need bold moments, is we need to be boldly told when we're screwing up, right? Well, awesome. Well, this is very cool stuff. What do the rock stars need to know about price point or affordability, or like what should they be thinking about for their studio?
Well, the new unit, the TC4, is $1950. The EQs, whether you get the tracking version or the mastering version, is $2,600. And the M3PH Mark III is $1250, I believe.
Okay. And I believe this is one of the more affordable, high quality mastering interfaces, right? I mean, not mastering, but monitor controller. Yeah. Awesome. Well, thanks very much, Glenn, and thank you, Harold. You guys are awesome for doing this.
Right.
Let the rock stars know where they can find out more about Coleman Audio, and where do they go pick one of these up?
Well, my website is colemanaudio.com. I have all my information there. I'm also on Facebook. There's a Coleman Audio Facebook page. I'm always posting something on Facebook every day. And you can give me a call, 516-334-7109.
All right, pick up the phone, rock stars. Thanks very much, guys. Appreciate it. Thanks for watching. We'll see you guys in the next video. Cheers.